Christianity currently encompasses 2.65 billion people, roughly one-third of the global population. While the religion's historical headquarters sat in Europe, its demographic center has shifted toward the global south, with the largest concentrations of believers now found across Africa and Latin America. Yet this global population is far from a monolith. The faith is divided into three primary branches: Catholicism, Orthodoxy, and Protestantism, the latter of which has splintered into over 45,000 distinct denominations. Understanding how a single creed shattered into tens of thousands of pieces requires looking at how it was first unified. In the year 313, Christianity transitioned from an illegal, persecuted underground movement into a protected state religion. The architect of this shift was the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great. Legalization quickly exposed deep internal friction. In Alexandria, Egypt, an intellectual civil war broke out over the nature of Jesus, specifically whether he was co-eternal with God the Father or a subordinate creation. Constantine viewed this theological debate as a threat to his empire's stability. In 325 AD, he summoned over 300 bishops to Nicaea and essentially forced them to agree on a single, standardized doctrine to ensure the state remained unified. The Church's early survival depended on this top-down centralization. From the beginning, the definition of truth was a tool of imperial political power. In 330 AD, Constantine moved the capital to Constantinople. As wealth migrated east, Rome became an isolated outpost. This distance allowed two cultures to evolve. The West developed a Latin-speaking church led by the Pope, while the East maintained a Greek church overseen by the emperor. The friction eventually centered on a single phrase added by the West to the Nicene Creed, the Filioque. By altering a sacred text without a global council, Rome was asserting a right to dictate terms to the entire Christian world, a move the East rejected as a grave violation of church law. In July 1054, a papal envoy marched into the Hagia Sophia and served a formal document of excommunication to the Eastern Patriarch. The East responded in kind, and the two leaders effectively cast each other out of the faith. This great schism proved that centralized doctrine could not survive a divided empire. The singular authority of the Church had been cut in half. While 1054 was a legal split, the division became irreversible in 1204. During the Fourth Crusade, Western soldiers diverted from their mission and brutally sacked Constantinople. They pillaged the eastern capital, ending any practical hope of the two sides ever reuniting. Isolated from the East, the Roman Catholic Church became the sole arbiter of power in Europe, funding vast construction efforts like St. Protest in 1517 began as a critique of this corruption, but it quickly evolved into a rejection of the papacy itself. He argued that no central institution held a monopoly on the divine. Luther championed sola scriptura, the belief that the Bible alone was the ultimate source of truth. By placing the text directly in the hands of the people, he removed the need for a central gatekeeper to interpret God's will. This shift destroyed the very concept of a single, earthly authority. If the individual could interpret the text for themselves, then the power to define the faith had moved from the cathedral to the home. The removal of a central religious authority led to decades of social and political upheaval. Conflicts between Catholic and Protestant factions eventually spiraled into the 30 Years' War, a struggle that claimed 8 million lives across Europe. The resolution, the 1648 Peace of Westphalia, established the principle of state sovereignty. This effectively ended the Pope's ability to intervene in the political affairs of other nations, codifying a world where religious identity was no longer tied to a single global leader. Luther's precedent had shown that religious independence was possible. Decades earlier, King Henry VIII had already demonstrated the political potential of this idea, breaking from Rome to establish himself as the head of his own national church. This cycle of fragmentation accelerated over the centuries. As different groups applied their own interpretations to the Bible, new traditions emerged, from Baptists and Methodists to the vast modern scale of the Pentecostal movement. The 45,000 denominations we see today are the direct outcome of this history. It is the result of a 2-millennia struggle that successfully transferred the authority to define truth from a single Roman emperor into the hands of the individual believer.